Welcome everybody to our final presentation. My name is Brian Elliott.
And my name is Basha Delawska-Elliott.
And this is our presentation. For our analysis, we selected the World Bank's health, nutrition, and population data. Since we both work in medical libraries, we wanted to explore healthcare-related topics. One challenge we discovered was that the data sets were already parsed. This graph on child nutrition looks similar to the graph that you could generate on the World Bank's website. We were concerned that since the data was parsed, we wouldn't be able to find anything new or interesting in it, that there wouldn't be anything discoverable. Our first reaction was to look for a new data set, but all the data sets we could find had also been parsed, and none of them were as interesting to us as the original World Bank data we'd selected. So we decided to keep looking at this data. To get to know the data better, we looked at a variety of attributes. The top graph shows the top 5 countries with the highest percentage of underweight children.
The bottom graph shows child malnutrition statistics by geographic region.
Once we became more familiar with the data set and we had some success with splunking the data, we went back to look at the World Bank search and data visualization tool. We found the tool clunky and the visualization illustrated on this slide difficult to read. That convinced us that even with smaller data that has been manipulated, big data techniques and tools, such as Splunk, offer advantages in analysis and visualization, so we got back to Splunk.
Originally, we planned to look at health indicators or gender inequalities, but we decided against those topics because we thought the results would be relatively easy to predict, with the more developed countries showing better health indicators and greater gender equality. Our next step was to experiment with different data categories to see if we could find anything interesting there. Our goal was to find a different way of interpreting or looking at the data, and an opportunity presented itself in an unlikely place when we reviewed personal health expenditures as a percentage of GDP. We immediately saw something unusual in the data, something that we thought put U.S. healthcare expenditures in a new light.
These 3 graphs represent statistics by country for 2005, 2009, and 2012. The U.S. percentages are highlighted. What surprised us was how high the U.S. number was when viewed in the global context. While the U.S. is typically compared to other industrialized countries, such as Germany, seen in the middle graph, its expenditures are closer to some of the world's least developed countries, like Liberia. Liberia's GDP is less than $2 billion, whereas the U.S.'s GDP is $17 trillion. Here's a look at the global neighborhood. This graph represents private healthcare expenditure as a percentage of GDP. Longer bars represent a greater percentage. The thin blue column on the right is the U.S. As you can see, only 2 countries have higher expenditures. Those countries are Liberia and Sierra Leone.
When discussions about healthcare take place, proponents of curbing the expenditures often mention the effect healthcare costs have on the U.S. economy. The discussion is often framed only in the context of the top 10 or 20 wealthiest nations in the world. However, looking at the U.S. expenditures in the global context seems to be much more illustrative, since it allows us to see that the degree to which healthcare expenditures affect the U.S. economy is actually much more akin to that of poor countries where incomes are low, GDP is very small, and healthcare indicators are alarming. In other words, those costs should be much higher in relation to the overall economic output of those countries. This should give us all pause. It is obvious that the U.S. is disproportionately affected by high healthcare costs. So let us wrap up this brief presentation by saying that our final project of analyzing World Bank's health, nutrition, and population statistics data was very instructive and fun. Working with the World Bank dataset gave us a chance to learn more about Splunk's search processing language and to practice skills that we have learned in the class. We even got a chance to peek behind the curtain and play around with the XML structure in Splunk when we run into formatting issues. So although the data set we analyzed turned out to be smaller and more processed than we had hoped, we were still able to find meaningful results and gain new knowledge through analyzing it with Splunk. We hope you enjoyed our analysis. Thank you for watching and best of luck to all of you. Peace out.